So, it's an interesting thing being a human being and being alive and having things to do. And then at times having very little to do, which in your solitude, as I was reading this morning, leads you to God. In your loneliness or the quiet, as soon as we get good and quiet, I think God is almost inescapable, which I think is why culturally people stay so busy, especially in America, but I mean around the world now, where you just go from one task and distraction to the next, from your phone to the computer to the television to the bathroom to the internet to the coffee to the food to work to back and forth, and never a moment's peace. And then people keep this up until they're so exhausted that they have to pass out at the end of the day, which leaves very little time for prayer, which probably is the point of all of it, because as soon as people do begin to pray, again, they have to not only come face to face with God, but with their own hearts. And there's this man that is like a street side prophet, one of these kind of like an inspirational speaker guy, kind of a weird guy that would stand on streets and give speeches, and a raving lunatic on one, in one sense of the word, but a very insightful and almost prophetic wise man in another surrealistic sense of the word. He looked zany, and he would wear at times nothing but like whitey-tighty pairs of underwear, and he would go out on the street, and at first glance it just looks like a man making a fool of himself, but to an untrained eye, probably so did John the Baptist when he was out in the desert raving like a lunatic about saving souls, saving your own soul, about being baptized in the fire of the Holy Spirit, about readying the way of the Lord and making straight and narrow your path, because wide is the way that leadeth to destruction, to damnation, to perdition, to eternal fire. And it's so wide a road as soon as you get on the internet or out in the world, or even at work or even at play. But until we are kind of at rest in our hearts, and this is what reminded me of that man. I found him. I friended this guy on Facebook years ago because he is such a special case. Absolutely insane, but absolutely right. And therein lies the rub. That, as I was saying the other day, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And I think that we are encouraged socially and culturally now, it's societally, to be very well adjusted to a very sick place, to try to conform to all that is the world. And we all know what that looks like. On one side, if you get away from it all and you're in quiet and solitude and you just look at it like a tree growing in stillness, it's very calming. And I did that when I was out sitting in the hot tub a little while ago. I got good and quiet and good and still and very, this was after doing Tai Chi in the warm water, or before, I can't remember. But scratch that. I looked at a tree in stillness. And see what happened to my mind, face, heart, voice, as soon as I thought about stillness, it shut me up. Because what can I say? What can I even do? Stillness is stillness. I made a piece of art one time. Well, before we talk about that, what the man said, the crazy man, his name I can't remember, the very wise crazy man, said, you can't hide from your own heart. And we try, we try and we try and we try and we try. We try, please God, anything but me, And this is why today's gospel from John chapter 3 is about how we must decrease so that the Lord might increase within us. And it's so beautiful, because as soon as I was saying the other day, we carve out enough room in our hearts for the Lord that there's very little of us left. And that we manage to work with that little bit of ourselves and be okay with that, and not have to be like Mr. Highty-tighty and all puffed up and look at how beautiful and wonderful I am, and here are all my wonderful, and we're all guilty of this. Here are all my wonderful accomplishments. We have to do it every time we're trying to get a job. We have to make a resume list of how wonderful we are. And it's so ironic, that you can't just go in and have a conversation and see. But, you know, granted, if I was going to hire somebody for a position at a company that I owned, I guess I would want to know if they're qualified. And so you have to play ball with the world as long as you want to be in the world. And we are called as Christians and Catholics to be in the world but not of the world. And what does that mean? That means we have to keep our heart for God. Our butt might belong to our job, you know, but we can give our hearts to the Lord. And there are those of us who feel called like St. Anthony to just get away from it all, to go into the desert, into a cave, and scratch an image of the face of Christ on the wall and just sit there all day praying and looking at it, because that's really how you get away from the world. Unless you are, as I am, blessed enough to be, say, asked by your mother to house sit for a week for her, and it's a lot of work. She has a lot of responsibility. As soon as you start taking on the responsibilities of your mother, you realize how hard she works. And that's no joke. But I have, while I've been here, had a lot of quiet and contemplative time. And I'm thankful for that. Because some days, having a house to yourself for a few hours or even a week is as close as we're going to get to that cave in the desert, unless we really make some serious life changes and go and like enter a monastery, a cloistered monastery full of nuns if you're a woman, or brothers and monks and priests if you're a man, and literally get away from it all into a place where quiet and solitude and contemplative and meditative prayer is not just encouraged but expected. And I've thought about that. I still think about that sometimes. I am a hopeless romantic, which at times breaks my heart, but at the same time, these are the things worth living for, often. You know, God made women so that men wouldn't be alone. And women are so beautiful. They're everything that we're not as men. You know, sugar and spice and everything nice, and their hearts are better than ours. In so many, it's going to make me get teary-eyed. In so many senses of the word, women perfectly complement a man. And I don't just mean by saying, oh honey, you know, your resume looks really nice. But I mean in being, not just telling us how good we are, but being, literally being everything that we're not. Everything at times that we wish we were. More adept at care, at patience, at love itself. You know? Nurturing the better sides of us. And at times all men need that. Jesus himself needed that. This is why he had a mother. This is why he had Mary Magdalene and other women in his life that cared about him, that cooked for him, cleaned for him, washed for him, that washed his body after he was crucified. Thank God for women. That's my 2 cents. And remember, as that man that I'll now stop calling crazy said, you can't hide from your own heart. I love you all. God bless you, and as I always say, keep your heads up, because you can see farther. Have a nice day.